Hello, is that Michaela? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, excellent. How are you doing? Thanks for coming.
No, thanks for having me. Yes, good, thank you. How are you?
All right, yeah. Where are you joining me from? Who are you with?
So I'm with Mutter Keen's Community Foundation.
Peace. How's it going?
Yeah, good, good. Yes, in
Yeah.
my role is about working with community groups to help kind of recruit trustees and
Oh, amazing. That's so how is that?
yeah, it's good. I think some organisations still need quite a lot of help in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So
A
yeah,
100%. Well, it's also how do you attract people on both sides in as much as governance is the charity commission is a certain way, it has to be done in a certain way. Before I got involved in charity, I was like, I don't know what I would offer. If do you know what I
yeah,
mean? I
yeah.
think there's a bit of work to be done about like, you know what, everyone can be a trustee. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the work we're doing is around that education piece about actually everybody's got something to offer,
Right.
even just understanding what the word trustee means.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Do you
Because if you work in the charity sector,
right.
the average Joe might not know the word trustee. But that's what we
Right.
find anyway.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not even sure if you asked me for a definition now that would trip off the tongue. Oh, it's so nice to have you, Michaela. Hi, Amber, and hi, Jane. Thanks for coming.
Morning or maybe
Morning.
afternoon.
Where are you joining us from, Amber?
Shropshire,
Lovely Shropshire.
indeed.
And what's your organisation?
So I'm chair of the SIDCN, the Small International Development Network.
Oh, wow. Okay. Excellent. And hi, Wayne.
Big fan alert. Hello.
Wonderful human is in the space. Happy belated Father's Day.
Oh, thank you very much. How are you?
Saw your tweet. Yeah, all right. Yeah, good, thank you. Happy. I was like, and I'll just say hi, Jane. She might not be able to hit.
Hi, I can.
Hi. Hi.
Good to meet you.
It's really good to meet you. Just change my name so I can see it. I was a bit nervous. I was like, oh, what if it's like a party and no one comes? You know, that shit where you like send out the invite, you're like, oh God, what if it's just me talking to myself on the Zoom?
So many people are doing it on catch up as well. It's just the way of the world, so don't worry.
That's how I would do it as well. But I was like, oh, I hope there's some real life humans to speak to, because then it's always nicer, isn't it? Ooh, we got Lisa's coming, and then I've got to do the tech. And Lucy is here. Hi, Lucy, and hi, Lisa. We just got a couple of minutes before we start, so we were just saying hello and finding out where folk were coming from.
Hello.
Hiya. Hi, Lisa. Where are you coming from?
Warwickshire. I'm CEO of Life Space Trust.
Oh, amazing. Got so many interesting people on the call. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, hello. I'm Hocus Pocus Theatre in Norwich, and I'm also work for Suffolk Art Link as a town doctor.
And I knew your name, Lucy, because I'm going to see you in 2 weeks, aren't I?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be joining you for that. So
yeah. Thank you for coming. And hi, Scottish Love in Action, and Lenka and Emma from Steel Bones. Okie dokie. Ali's here. just figure out how to do my screen sharing in a minute. Amber's just grabbing some water. I'm very sensible. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so that we can see a little bit about Small Charities Week, the mighty. Let's have a look. Share. Share screen. Let's take that away. And that should be. Can you see that, everybody? Oh, yes. That was a major. I was like, oh my word. And then especially as Wayne's organizing part of it, I was like, I better get that screen up immediately. Alrighty, so, and Vic's come, and I think I said hello to everyone, Indy as well. So the format for this morning, so we're going to have half an hour of chat from me, and then there'll be some Q&A stuff. And just to say,
hitting bottom with Catherine is.
No, but that's not.
I think someone's having. You might want to put yourself on mute. We don't mind listening, but you might not want us to hear. Yeah, in terms of notes, I've got a pack that I created as part of the children's board that we did with all of the stuff I'm going to talk about. So feel free to work in whatever way is good for you, but also if you just want to listen, I can, maybe Vic or Wayne or someone can share that, or I don't know, Wayne, are we sharing slides or we're not sure yet? Yeah, okay, cool. Right, so let's begin. So who are we? Well, my name is Sam and I'm the director of Clowns Without Borders. And we provide emotional first aid. Oopsies, can you see, is that better? Yeah, that's better, isn't it? So we provide emotional first aid through laughter and play to children impacted by war and natural disaster. And this is because, as you can imagine, conflict disrupts the lives of children, and we believe there must be an alternative to worry. Also boredom, refugee camps can be really boring. So we try and create the space, conditions and permission for children to reclaim what it means for them to be a child. And our goal is that children lead us in everything that we do, and we're really figuring out how do we put somebody at the center of the work, and put somebody, I should say, children. And at the moment we've worked in 15 countries and shared laughter and play with 100,000 children. So the children's board, the question was, how do we get to a point where we report to children and not just everyone else? So I think because of the Charities Commission, we've got, as time has gone on, better at reporting, making sure we're compliant. Our funders, trusts and foundations, our donors. So we have all these sort of emergent strategy. I mean, it's mainly me, but we have plans for how to report and communicate. And the question was like, how do we become accountable to the people that we serve? There's like a power imbalance going on of going, what is it to have people, children, run our organization? Like, what does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? So I remember at a board meeting saying, I think we should set up a children's board. And I think the trustees did it. They said, oh yeah, that sounds suitably Clowns Without Borders. Yeah, see if you can get some funding. Like we did, it was very like, I don't know if our trustees really knew what we had in store, because it was funding dependent, because we just don't have the resources to do stuff without funding. We don't have a lot of surplus. And so I approached the Arts Council. They gave us some funding. So they gave us, I think it was £6,500 for the year. And we wanted to pioneer an approach to governance as where children led it as a credible and vital part of our organization. And whilst it applies to children, I think you can swap out children for adults. I think it applies to humans. And I think somebody might need to be on mute if that helps. And it comes from the profound belief that everyone, including children, have the potential to be powerful agents of change in their communities and beyond. And we now have 10 children on our board of trustees, our children's board. Our youngest member is 6 and our oldest is 11. And the process has been wildly humbling and incredibly inspiring. And I feel so grateful to have been able to be doing this. Since they joined, since we set up the children's board, they've radically changed how we think about our work. And I think our trustees were a little bit nervous, like, yeah, but what if they say, we want like clowns in flying cars and dogs in tutus? There was this misunderstanding of like how sophisticated potentially children can be. And the nuance that they have brought to us has been incredible. We're changing how our programs are delivered, we're rethinking our policies, and we've had conversations that we would never, ever have had otherwise. I couldn't do this without including them. So I'm going to show you, it's about 3 minutes of our last chunk of work where our chairperson met the children. We asked them, how do you want this meeting to be? And they had full control over it. And they said, we would like to be adults. So there's like a wild irony of that, which I love. Okay, well, that's fine. And how they wanted to be adults was by wearing sunglasses. So that's just to give you a little bit of the context, because when you see it, it's like, why are they all wearing sunglasses inside? That's why. I think they did an amazing job, right? So this is Wendy, and this is our church.
Thank you for agreeing to come together this afternoon. Good afternoon.
We have been waiting 4 months for your arrival.
Oh, I'm so sorry to keep waiting.
No, it's not really finding these perfectly good ideas. We really hope you like
I'm really looking forward to hearing them.
your rainbows.
Why do you think rainbows are important?
And they make people happy.
That's wonderful. Is that behind the clown?
Yeah, my idea is not just shows that make you laugh, but conversations with your friends, the people you like, to make you laugh. And my second idea is that you could give a longer playtime, because, say for example, the clowns leave, the kids or children would just be hyper or sad when they leave. So I think you should give them longer playtime with some board games.
That's a great idea. So they would continue the play even when the clowns weren't there.
Yes. You should like stand up and posters and invitations to like the refugees, so they're getting like really excited and like they want to go to the show, and then they can start laughing and having fun and forget about their past. Just in case they don't like shows, or we can have other tools. So like their options and what their choices like. So here, what I have is a bunch of toys and things that they can play with. So if you want to look at here, these are jewelry making. So basically, they put some string and they take some beads.
We're dressing the audience.
You know how Franz Brown borders, they help out and stuff. Maybe they could join in too. Some makeup and some costumes to just decorate themselves.
Fantastic. So they can be part of being clowns and part of the show.
Children. Yeah, because what if they don't like? What if they like to do art? What if they like to play games? I think they need a choice, and I believe they have rights to choice.
that it's important that the children can choose, that they can have something afterwards, that they can actually take part. So does that mean that it belongs to the children more? Okay. Yes, it's equal. Well, I will take them away to our board of trustees, and we will discuss them very seriously, and then we will come back and tell you what we can do to make these things. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, I mean, just so much joy. And like, I can't tell you what it means to discuss in a board meeting that we need more rainbows. Like, I feel like all meetings should open with that question or that thought. And yeah, there's one element actually that's not in that we've done further thinking around, like one of the children said, oh, we think, like, why aren't the kids involved? To the point now it's like, actually, why aren't they involved, and why aren't we, what is it to have adolescents or young people to do the job that we do, that we train to be clowns? And this radically different model that the children have given us permission to discuss and think about and talk more deeply about. Yeah, so we did this process of translation where we were like, this is what we think more rainbows might mean, and then feeding that back to the children to just go, is that correct? Because we don't want to, if it might not be correct. Shows are funny, but talking is also funny. Dressing up, this is the model around kids being involved, but also, why wouldn't they want to dress up? Like, what is that in terms of our provision? What is a totally immersive experience, for example? So that what you saw was the culmination of working with children for about 8 months. And what I'm going to just focus on now. Oh, by the way, I edited that because there was it was a very long piece where they were very thorough and very clear about what it is specifically that they want and the ideas. And just goes, like, it's really, for me, really powerful around, if you give people the time, space, and energy to express themselves, these incredible things emerge and can happen. So what are the critical factors to thinking about, okay, how do we change governance? What could we do differently? 3 things for us: a strong shared vision around permission. The trustees are like, yeah, sure, let's just see what happens. Myself, and then working with the children. So I'd worked with Mayflower before, so we had this relationship. Time and money, I'm afraid, it's always that. And skilled facilitators to work with children, but also the adults, like not making an assumption that the adults know how to do that or how to you know, what's the story in their head about what it is to, you know, devolve power or hand power over, or to have equal, whether that's adults or children, what work needs to happen with the trustees. So it's very much a two-way street. So the bad news, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach, but there are a whole load of tools out there that we did a bunch of research on, in terms of how can we frame this in a way that makes us truly accountable to children, rather than, oh, well, that's nice. What color would you like the logo to be? And the tool for us that works is called Lundy's model of participation. And the most important bit for me about this is the audience, the last 2 squares. I mean, they're all important because they're all related, but this bit about children's views are communicated with a responsibility to listen. That idea of, I have a responsibility, in the same way as I have a responsibility to the Charities Commission. What is it to give the same power to to children, because our services are for them. And then the influence bit around taking ideas and using them and communicating that bit back. So like speaking with your community, but then if you never hear about what happens, it becomes tokenistic. You're sort of becoming part of the problem of like, well, it doesn't matter what I say, because I never, even if you took the idea and used it, what's the mechanism? What's the feedback mechanism? Even if it's like, oh, we didn't use that idea because of X, Y, and Z, it's about a communication, not just a one-way element, like one way, oh, let's take all this information for ourselves, but not bother to feed back to the people who gave it to us. So I'm going to work through the squares a little bit and then maybe share some thoughts and questions with you that might hopefully would be useful for you if you were thinking of doing the same. So the first one is space, that Lundy talks a lot about. And what is it to create a supportive, inclusive environment where people feel connected and valued? So what does connection and valued look like? And for us, certainly it's understanding how is this going to be of benefit to children? So it can't just be for us. How is this useful, joyful, beneficial in a wider context? And it was important for us that we worked with children that we knew. It was a pilot, and the children had been already nominated to be part of a culture council. So we didn't want it to be compulsory. Children had to feel like they wanted to be there. If at any point they wanted to drop out or not take part in a part of the session or the day or the whole thing, that was totally fine too. This really supporting their sense of agency over the process as much as we could. And we spent a long time just getting to know the children. So I think that's sort of different potentially from other processes I've read or I've heard about of what is it just to meet the people that we're working with before our agenda, before all of that other stuff becomes necessary. And that is, I understand in terms of time and resources can be really challenging, but building that high levels of trust at the start, I think really helped the process to be as successful as it was. And also communicating in a language that was appropriate for that group. So games, dance, music, storytelling. And built into that environment, we're doing a lot of play, a lot of communication, was games around a lot of feedback games about how are we doing? Is this fun? Is this useful? Because they can tell us, we don't have to come up with all of the ideas. We've got a room full of like geniuses, they will tell us. And so building that high levels of reflection into the process. And these were some of the questions. So what are the barriers? So who isn't in the room? What locations? So our trustees thought initially children were going to come to the board meetings. And we were like, no, we meet children where they are. Because the barrier, the levels of authenticity you could have where someone's in an intimidating environment, a little bit like theatre, it's such a big deal to cross the threshold. So let's go to where people feel comfortable and happy and safe. And also the format, what's the right format? So we talked about, is this online? Certainly that would have been cheaper. You know, could we reach more children? So we had thinking about like quality, scale. We had long conversations about that. And then, so the next quadrant is, let's see, space. Yeah, voice. So we think that anyone, including children, can make an informed decision when adults share information in an inclusive and appropriate way. And for us, voice is also about context. So it's really hard to give an informed decision about something if you don't have enough context. And that applies to anyone. And so building children's awareness of their rights, especially Article 12, the rights of the child to express their views, was really important, but also how are we sharing information about our organization in a way that's appropriate, so that there's a feeling of connection, a feeling of, oh, I can contribute, I can make a difference. So the clowns came in, did a show at the school. We talked about, I went in and I said hello. We work with facilitators who are really amazing at working with children. How do people feel like they are part of the organization and not just, oh, let's just wheel you in for your opinions and then wheel you out? That, and I think, again, thinking about how can people feel a sense of belonging to what you do? And wherever possible, we wanted children to lead what we were doing. And so there was like 3 questions that we kept asking. What questions should we ask you? What questions do you like to be asked? And what questions do you not want to be asked? And then crucially, how should we do this? How do we set it up? Can you help us to do that? So not coming in with this ready-made process and holding this space and the tension of going, oh, there's quite a high threshold for ambiguity of, we don't know really what the children are going to say, and if they want to present it all through the medium of games or drawing or dance, if they wanted to, be fine. Okay, let's do our next one. This one. So yeah, some of the key considerations, what level of contact with trustee or staff is right. So if you're, if you have terrifying trustees, that's probably worth bearing in mind around, maybe you don't want anyone to meet them ever. I'm sure they're not scary, but like what's relevant? One thing for us was, I feel really grateful that we documented the process because it was real. There was an actual tangible thing I could share with trustees to show this isn't just a little project happening over here. This is a real life. These are real life people who are contributing. And it literally put the work onto the agenda, this constant reminding, updating, here are the children, this is what they're doing, so that the process was live for the trustees as well. So again, this is about inclusion. How do we include people in the power structures of our organization and the current power structures? What work needs to happen with them to either relinquish power, control, be taken on their own journey? And I think that's also something to consider doing when thinking about a role like something like this. And then the last one is this one, audience, these last 2 squares of the Lundy model, the audience and the influence. So like Wendy, our chair, is really awesome, but she really wanted to meet the children quite early. And we said no, because it's not really about us. It's about how are we creating safe, welcoming, happy spaces, and bringing new people into a process can be quite disruptive. And we weren't really sure what the process was going to take, like which roads we were going to go down. And I think having someone come in too soon it might have been off-putting for both parties. So we held that space, got to know the children, got to know how they like to work, and then they could give us informed consent as to whether they wanted to meet me or the chairperson. And without that context, then they're potentially saying yes to something that they don't necessarily know what they're saying yes to. So just constantly checking in of like, is this the right thing to do? And then the children, then they decided, and I think this applies to any group or any adult, like where should this happen? How should it happen? Who should be included? Who shouldn't be included? And so this is kind of how the flow of information went from, working with the facilitators. Then after a while, I came in and they met with me. That was more context. I would feed back to the trustees at every trustee meeting. This is what's happening. Here's some footage. Or the facilitators would come and talk to trustees about the process. And then this last phase of work, that direct contact between the chair and the children themselves. And so some considerations around how are you making roles, responsibilities super clear, but also the scope of change. So one of the challenges is that for the group we were working with children, it's a long time. So a board meetings every 3 months, 12 weeks, that's nearly half it's like a term. And so figuring out, how do we marry that up with a timeline? Like a child's timeline is different to governance, the way our board meetings are set up. So something happened that was quite critical where we're doing a game and a child said, you're doing some work with children impacted by the war in Ukraine. And they said, actually, I think the children should have chalk because they might not have a lot of things to carry or have their toys, and you can use chalk anywhere. And so the facilitator fed that back to me, and we then used that in activities in Romania, Poland, and Moldova, and took images. And the kids loved it, and all the chalk drawings everywhere, and shared that image back with the children so that they understood as well that this is serious. Because kids get asked all the time about stuff, and can be tokenistic and maybe not intentionally so, but like that was a really important milestone. And if I did it again, I would build more of those in so children can see we're taking this seriously. This isn't something we're just doing for fun. And that really changed their sense of, oh, right, we do have power, we do have a say in this process. Yes, and I think this just applies to humans. Like, how are we making governance fun, interesting, and accessible? So one of the things I did with I shared this with some other arts organizations, and one of the CEOs said she does a lot of work through the arts with children with special educational needs. And she said, we use a lot of sensories. We spray lavender or rosemary spray and it has a very powerful effect with some of the children. And she said, and then I was like brave enough, like I felt, I was like, I want to use them in our board meetings. They're quite intimidating, intense spaces. And so she was spraying the lavender spray in the board meeting. And there's this thing about, I think there's a real question of going, how are those spaces, the fact that it felt like quite a big step, how are we creating governance spaces that invite everybody in? And if it hasn't changed for years and years and years, it's probably not doing that. And so, of course, the Charities Commission has a certain way of being, and you need to do diligence and all of those things. It's not about not doing them, but it's about really thinking about, are these structures serving us and the people that we are meant to be helping? And what's the most radical structure we can think of, and trying to work back from that. That's kind of because I think it was quite hard to think to try and do it incrementally for us. So that's why I was like, well, actually, let's just get the children to do it. So getting started, some key things that if you wanted to try and rethink governance or how it's in your organization, what the shared understanding between all parties, and is there capacity, time, space to work through that with all the stakeholders, with all people, and is it written down? Because one of the things that emerged as the process went along is different people had different understandings of participation, inclusion, hierarchy, structure, and different understandings of genuinely, oh yeah, we can take the children's ideas into consideration. So that's not really enough. And I think having those conversations at the beginning helps to smooth things out during the course of the process. Are expectations about how long the process takes and resources required realistic? So for us, it's a minimum of 8 months, and now it's forever. And so that extra budget to do this in a way that's fun and meaningful, and often for children, we can't leave 3 months in between because then they forget, or you have to redo a lot of stuff. So for us, now that's part of our core costs and full cost recovery budget. And I guess the invitation would be what does the first step towards, we called it participation, but for us it was genuine governance, like what is that first step? Can you start small? Is there a case for trialing something or a proof of concept if there is resistance? But the thing I would say is that it's one of the best things I think we've done, and having to answer to children is just an absolute joy, because they're like, they say, yeah, we haven't done that yet. Why? And it's good to be challenged, like, because it's taking time, and this is but that's not like, but doing that in a way that makes sense and is meaningful for someone who's 6 requires rigor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tomorrow or day after?
I think someone needs to be on mute. So I think that's where
I'm
we
on a seminar, so just...
I don't know.
Okay, bye.
And so we've got a little bit of time for questions if anyone has anything. I see we've got a load in here. If anyone wants to, feels brave to say it out loud, or I can read them shall I read them in the chat? Lucy, you look like you might have a hand up, and Wayne also does. So
I'm really interested how you recruited them, all those children, and how you chose where to.
Yes, it's a good question. So part of children's or human rights is the right not to participate. So it's had to be voluntary. And so we spoke with the school, Mayflower, which we have a relationship with, and we said, are there any structures you already have with children that we could contribute to? So is this going to be beneficial for you? Like, that was really important for us. We're not just taking stuff. And they said, oh, we have this cultural council, children volunteer to be on it each year. And so we stacked the deck in that sense. So I had this relationship. There was already trust. They already, between the organizations, the primary school and Clowns. And so we were able to kind of start at a certain level of trust. So the school was incredible. They gave us like an hour a week to do this, which for a school is a lot. Yeah, so that's how we already knew them, Lucy. Sorry, Wayne, did you want to say something?
First of all, you're amazing.
Oh, the clowns are
that's an incredible question. But secondly, as well as the vision, this is all about the facilitation, right? And how do you find people who are comfortable facilitating with both children and adults? You know, just a bit of a chat about where you find those amazing humans. Was it the teachers? Was it staff?
Yeah, good question. Well, we had two. Well, we had Ben is our amazing teacher, who's just like, I feel like if the whole world had teachers like Ben, it would be incredible. Very just so with the children, and Maz is a facilitator who specializes in working with children. So Ben and Maz would facilitate, and Greg was the adult facilitator, because apparently it's quite hard to be two, to straddle both worlds. I love that. I was like, oh, we need a bridge. We need a human conduit who can do both. And so he would present the information. Greg's like chat GTPI, like he says stuff that adults really go, oh yeah, right, okay, in a way that I can't. And that was really good. Like, it's like the thing with the children's board is the language of children and laughter and play, but also how am I going to do this in a way for the grown-ups to hear? I mean, I'm a grown-up, I mean the adults is what I mean. So we're lucky, Wayne, because that's what we do. So we have a whole network and bank of artists who that's all that they do. And so we did a call out and went through a process, like a recruitment process, with quite specific early years and age groups up to 11, that expertise. Does that answer that? Beth has her hand up.
Hello, I wanted to just be amazed at your work as well. It sounds phenomenal and I'm so interested to hear about it. Thank you so much for this morning session. And my question is, so the children that you're working with are in the UK and you're seeing them face to face, and obviously it sounds like through the process itself, you're familiarising them really deeply with the work of Clowns Without Borders. Was there something that you had to do to really ensure they were familiar with the work that you do, that they can't see directly? That they can't be part of, that they can't visit? Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, so we obviously, the clowns came in, did a show. They also talked about the work that they had delivered and developed internationally, but also we did a lot of work around children's rights. There's amazing resources out there, and global context work. And we're lucky enough to have footage of our work, international work. So also kind of working with artists who aren't from the UK to, can we set up digital or Zoom sessions? And I think that that was the most intense part of the work, is the context building, because like it's not, children have amazing ideas all the time. It's about, how is it specific? How are we supporting children or any group to have the background, the context, the tools, the language to contribute in the way that they want? And that's not, and so it's not making the assumption that has to be through words, that has to be through speaking. Is there another way that you can contribute? And I think, yeah, the more time spent on context building in a way that's friendly, welcoming, the better. Anyone? Oh, Ali. Hi, Ali.
Hello. I had so many light bulb moments during this about where I've seen people try and do this and the reasons it doesn't work. And it feels like the reasons in places where I've seen it not work is because it is so counter to the culture of how the organisation's working with people in the first place. So it's not actually empowering people as part of their work. I mean, it was one really bad example, and then they suddenly wanted people on their board and it was just so disjointed from everything. So it feels like culture is such an important part of this, about the nature of the work you do. So then my question is, often we have organisations that the actual work is strengths-based and the practitioners are working in fabulous ways, but the board doesn't understand that, and they don't always understand clearly what their domains of influence and responsibility are. And the fact that changes organisation to organisation is important. And you said it was quite casual, like, yeah, the board shared my vision and then they had to relinquish their power. You need to do a bit of work there. But it feels like even getting started on this, you can't do that until you know you've got a strong board that actually do understand that and are more open to relinquishing that power. And often that can start with just a relationship with CEO and trustee. That's a good litmus test of whether this will work further down. So was there anything in particular you did, or are you just like fabulously lucky with the board you have?
Well, there's two questions there, Ali, about maybe about do you have to wait for the trustees to be on board? I mean, oh, God, then we'd be waiting for it's glacial. I mean, obviously we're assuming all of our trustees are awesome. I'm talking about other trustees. Like, do we have to wait till they're ready, or is it now? Is it now? And I think, you know, what is the smallest amount of change that you can implement within, if you're really, really restricted? So that would be the challenge. Is it, what does that look like? And I think there's a piece around I think the trustees were just like, oh yeah, that's fine. I think it was more like, well, there's lots of steps if you get the funding, and if you do this, it's like that's a long way down the road. And as it turned out, it wasn't. And I think that bit around holding our trustees to account of, if we say we're rights-based and we're working with this group of people, and at the heart of their work, well, why aren't they? Why are we still the power brokers? So that, you know, and we have, and I had that conversation of, yeah, well, we'll just take them into consideration. No, we won't take them into consideration, because then you're already making an assumption about the quality of the idea. And, you know, and of course they came back with nuanced, complex thoughts that we had to break down. And so I think I would wait for the answer from trustees of, like, just, you know, when you're ready, like, let them tell you why they don't want the people who use who are the end, you know, the people who are part of the charity, like, to not be involved in it, and wait for that reply. Because I don't know, I can't think of a really good reason why that shouldn't be happening right now.
Yeah, I think I can see it has to happen in parallel, and it can unlock a lot. Just asking the bit you framed at the start of accountable to the people you serve, which is everything, isn't it? Like, that's it should be what drives all of us. So starting that conversation and doing it in thing, and recognizing when the board are going to hold it back and when that more intentional work. So you can't do it, both needs a lot of work. Basically.
And the humanizing bit as well, you know, of going, this is not a hassle, this isn't something that's happening over here. How do those two groups meet? What does that look like for your organization? And what's the smallest viable product of that? The smallest way you can do that? Because if it's them and us, that's problematic. You're probably not going to survive in the net, you know, like, so what's the conduit? Where's the moment where those two groups meet? And that doesn't have to be, there's loads of different ways. It doesn't have to be in person. It could be, you know, we talked about drawing pictures between autistic children and like, not assuming we can use language, of, you know, just being creative about that, and getting them on board as early as you possibly can. So we had Greg to talk in the adult language. These are the objectives, these are the why. So just as we work through games and drawings and language of children, what's that language of the board that's going to let them hear this and say yes? Who is that? Has it made your board meetings more fun? And yes, because we actually talked about has it made your board meetings more fun? Yes, because we talked about more rainbows. That was the best meeting I've ever had. like if you can imagine that, what that does to the meeting, instead of going, okay, right now we're going to look at the finance, now we're going to do this, it's like it brings children into the room. It's not that you shouldn't do the finance and all of the other stuff, that's really important, but it's as well as, not instead of. Rainbow gold, yeah, excellent. Anyone else? I think we've got two more. Is it two more minutes? 2 minutes, yeah. No. Can I ask a question, if you can answer it in 2 minutes? Is anyone thinking of doing it, of like setting up or like lived experience on the boards? Or Lucy, are you able to say a bit? It might be helpful for the room. maybe.
Yeah, we work in hospitals, so I've been thinking about doing it for a while, but we sort of the clown doctors are currently in quite an artist-led position because I've sort of stepped into the role of being a project officer. And we want to do that with the children. We're quite disconnected from the board, from the organisation that we work in. So much so that I feel like, I don't know, I really want, we really want to sort of like have meetings with the children and young people ourselves and have play sessions with them that, yeah, put them, I don't know, I'm not really making much sense. But the difficulty is we work with children in hospitals and hospices. So we're kind of not recruiting, but putting a call out for the families and young people that we want to bring together are they're in two separate places. Some of those children might be going in and out of hospital. We definitely want to work with those children rather than a separate group of children talking about, because their lived experience of being in hospital will be, you know, some children have never been into hospital. So it's kind of like, how do we find them? How do we, yeah, that's on my big quandary at the moment. And it is in the planning stage. So it is something that we would incorporate into like the future planning and funding that we go for. But yeah, sorry, it was a bit of half-formed thoughts there, but yeah.
Well, I'm more than happy
we want to do it, but not sure how.
I'm more than happy to share our funding proposal if that's helpful.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be, yeah, really, thank you.
Yeah, the Arts Council will be like, what? Why are all these boards being set up? As if that's how we change the world.
Yeah, it's massive. And like for us, we've been historically funded by Children in Need, and they've just stopped funding the project, but they have really changed the way that they want to see, they want to see children in charge. and it's really obvious from the way they've changed the funding applications and what, you know, what they want to see. They want to hear that voice of the child at the center of it, and it's so important.
I think that's a good place to end on that statement. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and really good luck. I'm on everywhere, so come and connect if you want to have more questions, and I can obviously I'll send the link to the download resource because there's like a million questions on there that might be useful as to start. And I will see you all soon. Bye. See you.